Hello, and welcome to a brand new series of mine called How to Cosplay the 11th Doctor. Here I shall be talking about how to cosplay the various looks of the 11th Doctor, and where to buy the clothes necessary to cosplay them. So all the helpful stuff, really. So, without further dilly-dallying, let's get into the 11th Doctor's looks of Series 7B. Series 7B was notable for showing 11 changes style radically. Gone was the tweed and the traditional blue and red bow ties. In came more complex patterns of bow ties, as well as a more Victorian style to his dress sense, now including the purple frock coat, which was no doubt an inspired choice by the time he spent in Victorian London in The Snowmen, but more on that costume in another video. The Bells of St. John style was the closest to the traditional Series 5/6 style, debuting the new coat, but keeping the braces/bow tie combo. This was almost immediately done away with in the Rings of Akaten, which introduced the new greyish-purplish waistcoat and the double Albert chain, as well as another bow tie. Episodes up until Journey to the Centre of the TARDIS would see minor variations on this form of costume. Then came my personal favourite of the looks. A black version of the velvet and lace waistcoat first seen in The Snowmen makes an introduction for the final 2 Series 7 episodes, lending a distinctly darker look to the Doctor's costume. Finally, we get a more subdued version of that costume in Day of the Doctor, with another new waistcoat, a charcoal one with a Prince of Wales check pattern, along with a new dotted bow tie, which isn't dissimilar to those used by the second Doctor, Patrick Troughton. This would eventually work itself into being Peter Capaldi's post-regeneration costume. So, without further ado, let's move on to the costume constants. The purple coat. Without a doubt the most popular part of the costume. The show's version is pure cashmere, making it one of the most remarkably soft coats on Doctor Who. However, this also equals hella expensive. The best non-£1,000 replica on the market is done by Abbyshot Clothiers. With a cashmere and wool blend, the Abbyshot version is a nearly perfect reproduction of the screen version. However, such quality does come at a price. £235.44. I hear you gasp and choke at that price, but never fear, contingencies are here. There are much cheaper wool blend versions on the market, and while they are not necessarily as accurate as the Abbyshot one, they're still very good and come in at a much more affordable price of £90. I think we can all agree that that's much lighter on the bank balance. For the trousers, I personally wear slim-fit black Chinos from Next. These essentially do the job as they look very similar to the G-Star's matte wears. The outfit differences are really quite subtle. Much cheaper too at only £20. 11 wore a different shirt in nearly every episode of Series 7B, but a simple classic light blue shirt will blend in with every variant you do. Except Hyde, which really does look more like a pyjama top than a shirt. And shoes. These are difficult. Matt's boots were actually custom made in Series 7, with the exception of Cold War and Hyde, which used the Series 6 black boots as they had been filmed first. Without spending hundreds of pounds, your best bet is going for simple brown brogue boots. Depending on where you look, these can be pretty much any price. Mine are from Next once again. Now let's move on to the costume variables. The most significant variable in 7B is the waistcoat. Bizarrely, the Nightmare in Silver waistcoat is actually the easiest look to replicate. A replica Rings of Akaten waistcoat is not available for the public to buy presently, so pretty much any grey waistcoat will do, which should be easy to find for cheap. The gorgeous velvet and lace Nightmare in Silver waistcoat is available from Obsidian Clothiers for a hefty but reasonable £65, while the most expensive, the Day of the Doctor waistcoat, is available from Magnolia Clothiers for a very hefty £133. It does look beautiful though. However, I personally use an alternative to that version, coming from DQT on eBay. It's smoother, a bit shinier, no lapels or pattern, but it has the right length and amount of buttons. And plus, it is a much more comfortable £15. It gets the job done. Optional! Braces! The Doctor still wears braces under the waistcoat, and while they may not be too necessary if you're doing any episode other than the Bells of St. John, I still find they lend that extra bit of detail. Fortunately, they're cheap. I just use generic black braces from Next, which are about £10. Very cheap. But Abbyshot have released replica versions for a very reasonable £20. The chain. Now, this is nigh impossible to replicate properly. So, alts I find are the way to go unless you have a seriously high bank balance. But if you're a student, or in fact a student in a gap year, like me, you don't. Far from it, in fact. So, here. The version I use is a mere £9 from eBay. The only difference is that it is actually silver, but in the right lighting conditions, this isn't really much of a problem. This is probably the easiest solution to what is the hardest part of the costume. And finally, the bow tie. My personal go-to bow ties are the Nightmare in Silver and the 50th Anniversary bow tie. Nightmare is available from Mrs. Bowtie, who awesomely do reproductions of all the bow ties Matt wore from Series 5 onwards, including the ones for Rings of Aquitaine, Bells of St. John, etc., 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 for £22 each. The 50th Anniversary one is also from Abbyshot, and while it's not screen accurate at all, it's still very good, at least until a proper 50th bow tie comes onto the market. Failing that, you can forget the bow tie entirely and be the post-regeneration 12th Doctor. Well, that's it for episode 1 of How to Cosplay the 11th Doctor. I hope this has been of help to you, and if you have any questions at all, you can contact me on my Facebook page below. For your convenience, I've included links on where to find and buy each item in the description below, so I hope that helps. You may not want to go exactly with those, but I just thought that they'd be a good place to start from, because that's the ones I have. In the next episode, I shall be talking about one of the rarer cosplays that you hardly ever see, but since it's Christmas, I'll be talking about it anyway because it's the snowman look. One of my personal favourites, in fact. So yes, if you enjoyed this, please feel free to join me again for the next episode. So, bye!